Today is National Press Day, and to commemorate it, the Dimapur Press Club had a small little program here at Hillview Colony, where Sashi Wapang, the additional commissioner of CGST, IRS as well, he was the guest speaker over here, and he touched on many topics, which was one of the where one of the theme was also media in the era of artificial intelligence. But mostly, since he is in the GST office and from the center especially, he spoke mostly on that and how Nagaland can expand its economy especially. But to also speak to us here, we have the Dimapur Press Club president Imkong Waling, and he's going to talk to us about what today means for the press fraternity, especially of Dimapur. And also today we saw a huge turnout. I think in recent times this is one of the biggest turnout over here in Dimapur. So can you please tell us what would you attribute that to?
I think we are used to having small turnouts in, especially when it comes to functions programs for the media. But this time we it the turnout was unexpected. I think I can attribute this to the booming, or I should say the advent of the electronic media, which I believe would you know force multiply the media presence in Nagaland.
That's true. And we see that apart from the print media now, even the electronic media is booming in the state of Nagaland. And then we have reporters from every district working for a channel, or so to say, online channel, YouTube channel and stuff. So can you give us your views on that?
Come again.
Views on the booming electronic media now. Do you think that it is more, now, I won't say a threat, but do you think the people should be more aware of what's going around social media as such?
I think, yeah, while I should say, the more the merrier, but we should also be careful of, agencies, people who take advantage of the press tech. I think we should be thorough enough to check who is who, and then, view whatever material they are churning out.
Lastly, Imkong, can you please tell us also now what is the next year going to look like for the press fraternity of Dimapur? What any plans do you have?
I think there's no plans as such, but our aim is to have, more, not more, but what sort of workshops, get ourselves acquainted, get ourselves updated with whatever that's developing in the, not only in the social, in terms of news, but also changes being taking place in the media landscape, not only in Nagaland, not only in India, everywhere, here as well.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Imkong. So that was Imkong Waling, the president of Dimapur Press Club. And like I said earlier, Sashi Wapang, IRS, the additional commissioner of CGST here in Dimapur, was the special guest. Let's have a look at today's program.
Hi. Hello. Welcome, everyone. I see, familiar faces. I welcome you all for making it a point to celebrate together this day. I bring greetings from the Executive Council of the Executive Body of the Dimapur Press Club and from the members of the Dimapur Press Club to the person, our guest, the man of the moment, Mr. Sashi Wapang, who happens to be not only a respected officer of an All India services known as the IRS, or the Indian Revenue Service. He is also a knowledgeable person, in fact, a living bank of knowledge and of great ideas. My warm welcome to him. I also welcome our esteemed senior member, Mr. Temchen Jamir. He is the editor and publisher of Our Vernacular, Dear Yum Yum. Coming back to our guest, he is currently based in Dimapur as the additional commissioner of the Central Goods and Services Tax. I must admit, I follow him on Twitter. I still prefer calling it Twitter, I'm sorry. But I would insist that you would also, whoever are on this platform, to follow our guest. You won't be disappointed. I have come across our guest as an approachable, knowledgeable person and a keen observer. And I believe he has some fairly genuine observations which he will share with us today. The theme, as all of us know, is on media in the era of artificial intelligence. And I think he'll also not only touch on this and also beyond associated topics. Is AI a threat? Is AI a threat to our conduct, to our journalistic conduct, or is it a complementary instrument? That we will know as the years follow. I am confident this will turn out to be a meaningful interaction, and on which note, I give the time to the chairperson, Paudi Renda, to lead us through the program. Like he said, this is going to be a short program. By the way, he mustn't have introduced himself. Paudi Renda is from Eastern Mirror, and he is a senior member of the Dimapur Press Club. Please.
I must apologize because I could not prepare a song for you. Normally, it's always good when somebody sings in a program. Anyway, I'm sorry for that. Now, I will call upon the guest speaker to deliver us a message. Kindly come.
Thank you to the President and members of the Dimapur Press Club for giving me this platform today. My public speaking engagements mostly are actually to do with tax, GST, taxpayers, the people from finance background, entrepreneurs, or on the other hand, maybe students looking for career guidance and that kind of a crowd. So when I got the call saying that can you please come and address this kind of a crowd which is very knowledgeable, very well-read, and which can easily pick me up and tear me to pieces and throw me to the dogs, I took the challenge and I said, chalo, let's try it. But as I thought more about it, it soon became apparent that neither am I an expert in the theme for this year, AI in the era of media in the era of AI, or in general, I'm not knowledgeable enough to address a crowd like this regarding National Press Day or the roles that the press should play. So, though I'll talk on this subject, being a taxman, I'll also, in the second part, talk about certain things which I believe such a gathering today should also be aware of. So, I hope you'll forgive me if I don't just stick to the theme, but talk about things which I believe or things which I'm a bit more experienced in, where I can say a few things to you. The way we consume news has drastically changed over the years. For me personally, I think social media has really changed the way I consume my news, to the extent that when I read the papers the next day, many of the things I have already seen on an hourly basis the previous day, right? And I've been a user of Twitter, or X as you call it, for many years. So, and if I compare across social media platforms, I think there's nothing like Twitter. Like one example I'll tell you, anytime there's an earthquake, okay, in India, you just check Twitter, earthquake. Somebody or the other would have tweeted about it, earthquake, Delhi, or somebody would have posted a picture if there has been some sort of casualty, right? So I think Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, they don't compare when it comes to Twitter. So for me, that has been an area where I think it has really changed the way I consume. So to some extent, things that have changed with AI coming in, I have also seen for myself. I mean, for all of us, I think algorithms basically determine the way we interact with news also, for that matter. What Google search shows for us, depending on our past history of how we've engaged with Google, right? So when it comes to, I think, AI, it presents a double-edged sword. Obviously, it comes with advantages. For today, I could have easily asked Google Bard or ChatGPT to give me a speech on this, and perhaps it would have given me a speech much better than what I would have done for myself, right? So, in some sense, I think even for media, some of the regular kind of work, data analysis, this kind of thing can be done through AI. But at the same time, I think the dangers that come along with it are big, and these are things which we need to be aware of, and it's not something we can shy away from. in the sense, the previous era where choices were limited, let's say the way we listen to music, we would listen to that cassette till the reel, accidentally got spun into our machine, or perhaps the way we watch movies even, watching the Hindi feature film on Doordarshan to be interrupted by Chitrahar on Sundays, all that is gone. You have OTT platforms, you have Netflix, you have this, that. It's all about choice. So even AI brings for us choices. So it's better that we get used to it. I'm sure even in the media, the younger lot, you come with more knowledge on these things also. And it's the older lot that needs to adjust and learn many of these things. But it's unavoidable because look at Twitter, for example. Look at the fact that every politician now needs to have a Twitter account. It has become another way. Instead of holding a press conference, he can say something in 128 words, 256 letters, whatever, to at least make a point. So newspapers also, I think almost all the papers have an Instagram account. It has become one more way to spread, right? So we are no longer dependent on the route of a delivery boy who sends the papers to get to the crowd. Because of the internet, because of affordability of smartphones, I think the way in which news spreads has changed. And accordingly, I think the way the news spreads in wrong ways, viral news, news spreading due to misinformation, wrong news spreading also has become an issue. Because compared to a reporter, somebody with a phone just taking a picture, and that can do so much damage, right? It spreads like wildfire. We've seen in many situations where users with no responsibility, social media users, they do that and that becomes news, right? Whereas for the media, you're always challenged with doing some verification at least before making a statement. So the fastest finger first, these kind of challenges are there for the media. Now, even our traditional challenges which the media would have faced before, be it dealing with the issue of paid news, biased news, be it issues like presenting non-issues as important news, whereas sidelining the actual things, or perhaps the chase for sensationalism, TRP ratings, etc. So these are things which media has to deal with, but in the era of AI, I think these are newer challenges to try and fight. I've been away from Nagaland most of my school, college, and work as well. So it's only in the last 4 odd years where I think I have been here physically, and I've also read local papers such that every day I take 3 of our local papers and I go through them. I have gotten a little more familiar with our local reporters as well. And I can say the credit is due to our Nagaland media fraternity also for largely being impartial and not aligning themselves with only one particular political ideology or with one particular political party. That I can say from my own experience. But having said these few things on AI and media, I don't want to waste this opportunity by giving you a speech, like I said, which ChatGPT would have generated for me, right? It would be ironic given the theme for this year. But as a taxman, I cannot allow this opportunity to go by without talking a little bit about the state of our economy. So just tag along with me even as I present a few things to you. I think you will agree with me that when it comes to our local media, compared to political news, compared to social news, compared to entertainment news, economic news, things to do with analysis of business, economy, taxation, finances, this is an area which doesn't get as much coverage as the others. You will agree with me, right? And I can honestly say, as an IRS officer also, this is something which I did not choose to do. But it was through the exam process that IRS was given to me, and I became an accidental taxman, right? So I'll tell you the story. I worked in Calcutta for around 7-8 years before coming here. We met a person from Sikkim who was the chief of the entire Northeast. He's looking after West Bengal, Sikkim, and entire Northeast. So he told us that in 1977 or 78, he was among the first Sikkimese to write that exam. Sikkim was not a part of India till then, And after Sikkim became a part, they were allowed to write UPSC, etc. So him and the then chief secretary, who was a lady in Sikkim, they were the first two from Sikkim to pass this exam and get. So he says he had no idea about IRS, no idea about taxation when he wrote the exam. Obviously, he wrote it hoping to become an IAS or IPS. And then, but one generation later, 25, 30 years later, he's there looking after the entire Northeast taxes. So it is possible to, within a generation, gain some expertise on these areas as well and be in a position to educate the public on these matters, because this, as I will present further, are important as much as healthcare is important, as much as policing is important, as much as the other sectors are important, where we are collecting our taxes, our revenue from, so that it can feed all these areas becomes very important. I recently read an article, I think it came out in Morong Express, where maybe on Monday it was, where it talked about how the government is spending money in the various sectors. How much money is going to education, how much money is going to policing. So I thought that was a very educative kind of news. But these kind of reports are rarely seen, I think, in our local papers. For a state that depends hugely on central funding, I think we need more public discourse on the state in which our economy is running. I'll just present a few numbers. Please don't shut yourself, because many times when it comes to numbers, we just do this, okay? But this is with a point. I'll keep coming back to this number. Out of the money that the government is spending every year, only 12% is coming from money which is earned in Nagaland itself. So in budgetary terms, our own revenue, state's own revenue is 12%, which means 88% we are always dependent on Delhi, right? We're always dependent on central funding to do our everyday work. So then, our economic freedom, our ability to do the things that we want to do is greatly dependent on if we can increase this a little bit more. Our flexibility to do things is restricted. Why? Because out of our budget also, if you see, 2/3 of the budget goes to salaries of government servants and pension. So 66% of what we are spending is a fixed thing already. So with the remaining, we get to do what we want to do. So when we increase the size of the cake exponentially across the board, other things also will increase, right? And when it comes to central funding, one thing is that many times it's a 90-10. In the sense, center says we put in 90%, you put in 10%. But when our own bowl is so less, many times we miss out on a lot of central funding because we cannot even put that 10%. So you can imagine what I mean to say when exponential growth will be there, because even as we increase our own bowl, the ability to access more also rises, right? A little bit more technicality just now. I'll just talk about, even this bowl is divided into two parts, our state revenue. I'm not going to use technical terms, but basically the 12% that we are gathering comes from two sources. One is coming through taxation, the other one through non-tax revenue, you call it, okay? So when you talk about tax revenue, it's mostly coming from GST. There's another tax, state excise, which we could have earned had NLTP not been there, right? For other states, this is a big amount that is earned. For us, mostly it is coming through GST. On the other hand, the non-tax revenue, there are many ways in which other states earn it. Lotteries, collection through power department, water supply, these kind of things. So for Nagaland, despite the weaknesses that are there in the power department as far as collection of revenue, so far, that is one area where we're getting, for the non-tax revenue, the most part, right? So this 12% mostly, by and large, I would say is coming from GST. Now that you have an idea where all this is coming from, let us look at what are the ways in which we also can help to increase this kind of revenue. Why I'm sharing it with the media is because I think we have a role in shaping public opinion and helping to make informed decisions, even in this area. The Honorable Chief Minister, in his budget speech this year earlier, had mentioned some of the ways in which our state government is thinking of to increase this part, increase this 12%. So he has mentioned one, the state will examine possibility of loosening NLTP to the fact that sale of liquor to foreign nationals. I'm just talking about what the government has stated. Two, introduction of sale of lotteries. Okay. Previously, what Nagaland Lotteries has been doing is, it is outsourced to distributors who sell Nagaland lotteries in other states. But for the first time we are starting it, I think you would have seen, there are now many lotteries. So this is another way in which the government is trying to increase our own revenue. Thirdly, it has mentioned it will start oil exploration. Very contentious issue after negotiations with Assam and the central government, right? So here, from my personal experience, I think the way in which Nagaland or Northeast in general is viewed from Delhi has also changed in recent years. How? Look at the number of ministers that are visiting our state these days. Almost every month there is some union minister visiting, right? And it's beyond Kohima and Dimapur. They're going to the other districts. So along with them, some bureaucrats also come. Their idea of Nagaland is no longer that distant, mysterious, far off, inaccessible. They can see ground reality, what is actually happening, which also means they can see that the funds being pumped in, what is happening to them, right? So the funds coming from Delhi now more and more are tied with certain accountability and responsibility on our part as well. So when we start discussing issues that affect our development, issues in which this kind of revenue can also be increased, many times it is seen that the issues are actually something which we ourselves, we Nagas ourselves, need to get around, rather than for the central government or for an outsider or for Delhi to solve for us, many times. Let's take an example. Being in the GST department, and also personally, I feel that because for our youth, etc., chasing only government jobs may not be the avenue which everybody can do. Therefore, entrepreneurship needs to be encouraged. So therefore, when people get into entrepreneurship, taxation becomes important. So the GST outreach programs, this kind of thing, we've been doing a lot lately. Now, while doing this, it is also apparent, we see that our economy is mostly the services sector, right? We hardly have anything manufacturing or industrialization to speak of. So therefore, when the question comes, how can we increase this industrialization in our state? So when this kind of discussion happens, very soon we get stuck on the issue of land. Because for industrialization to happen, and if we look at other states nearby who have also done it, Northeast states, let's say Meghalaya, for example, right? They are able to, for outside money to come in and invest in our land, the government needs to provide land to the investor for him to come and set up his factory, etc., and do that. So Meghalaya has done that from Jorabat as you enter in. There's that area called Birnihut as you enter. This is the foothill area. So government declares that area as a special industrial zone. Outside money comes in. So in a sense, they don't go up into the hilly tribal areas, right? Sikkim has also done it. The areas around Teesta, as you enter Sikkim, big pharmaceutical companies have come and set up shops. So they are not going inside, but in the foothill areas. So when we talk about possibilities of Nagaland doing that, many times the issue gets stuck with our land issues, right? Another example I'll give you, the rich oil and gas reserves that we are sitting upon. According to a news estimate from the Hindu newspaper, the annual royalty which Nagaland is missing out on comes up to 1,800 odd crore yearly. This amount, why I stated, is it's just a few crores less than that 12% which I talked about, right? So for us, if you unlock one or two of these things, the kind of exponential growth that can happen is enormous. And even as we discuss this complicated issue, it is a fact that Assam is already drilling on their side, right? And it is also a fact that I think the world is moving ahead to maybe greener options. These kind of things are a reality, so that while we sit on our deposits, maybe many decades in the future, the value could also go down. Because the value of fuel today may go down even as greener options become the norm all over the world, right? So I've mentioned industrialization, I've mentioned oil exploration. Among the other points mentioned by Honorable CM was alcohol and revenue. So that is such a complicated issue that today I won't even get into it, right? But if things continue as they are going today. No doubt the center will keep doing its part. We do this, but if we are to have a breakthrough, if we are to have an economic breakthrough, if we are to have that exponential growth, which can lift large sections of our population forward, I think we have to discuss and look at more ways in which this economic flexibility can be increased, right? We need to look at ways in which we can put our heads together and come up with solutions to the issues which lie ahead of us. This would mean convergence. See, the key word many times is convergence. Convergence between government departments, convergence between civil society organizations. We all tend to work in our own silos most of the time without seeing what the fellow next to us is doing. So there is a scope to arrive at solutions which are unique to our circumstances as well. Many times the constitutional protections given to us, 371A, is to protect our religious, social, and customary practices. But we should not be guilty of getting into a position where we are constantly saying, leave us alone, but keep sending us your money. We cannot be saying we want to be comfortable in our ways, but India should keep feeding us. Because if we do this, then it amounts to constantly wanting development without responsibility on our part as well. I have thought a lot before making such a contentious sounding statement, but I say this because I believe our local analysis should drive our economics. And I believe I'm speaking to a very well-informed, well-read crowd. Public opinion can be shaped on the need to become more independent economically as a state, which will allow us to be more flexible in the way we spend our funds. So be it health, education, agriculture, tourism, all the destinies are tied together. And to fully unlock our potential, perhaps we also need to make certain adjustments, even in our traditional systems, wherever it is required. We don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't need to slice our nose while trying to save our face. But we may need to examine ourselves and perhaps shed old ways of thinking which are primarily coming from a place of suspicion, a place of distrust. With India going forward and wanting to be a global power, I think the question of what advantage Nagaland also brings to the table is often asked. And nobody wants to be a state that doesn't contribute or is pulling down the others, right? Nobody wants to be a non-performer. And when Nagaland does something, let's say in sports at the national level, we get that credit, we get that accolades. But it is very much possible for Nagaland to also develop in certain areas where we are better than other states also. So thank you to Dimapur Press Club for giving me this opportunity to share some of these thoughts. We are all stakeholders in this together. And may we all contribute in positive ways to enable our state to forge ahead by promoting open discussion of ideas, questioning people's ideas, government's policies, at the same time informing the people about our leaders' successes or failures, and above all, contributing in making well-informed decisions which will strengthen our society and take us forward. Thank you very much for your patient listening.